somebody, like, cause a fuss, you would sue over one punch, just one punch.
What is the rules of punching a coworker outside of the workplace? HR? We need to ask HR. I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't want to get HR involved.
I didn't even think about suing somebody, Larry, but that's a great idea. Anybody who punches me that's worth over $100,000, I'm down. I'm going to sue the hell out of you.
I had the audio, like you're going to do something with it.
I know.
No, I mean, I'll just be like, hey,
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, we love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. You're the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 4th, 2021. Bound to the Deportes. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Oh, Charlton, it's wet as hell down here. We've been sitting around in Storm Central. It's been raining all day. Every water's running up and down the street. I saw even a couple of fish go by and say hi. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. Maybe they'll have to go save a couple of those fish so that I can fry them up.
That's not nice when the fish are trying to save you and you're trying to fry them up. It's all fair level war. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive your Tell Charlton and Big C City, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Never stop arriving. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, it is so hot in California. I don't think there's any water in California for the fish to swim in, Big C. But be that as it may, I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, we need to care. As much rain as we're getting down here and the heat that you're getting in California, in between those two, Charlton, we need to think about our great veteran men and women who have served this country so admirably. But unfortunately, Charlton, many of those veterans have fallen on hard times. And even more, Charlton, have turned to suicide. Over 24 a day have turned to suicide, Charlton, a very horrific number.
Wow.
We're talking about pandemic numbers, Charlton. Everyone's concerned with COVID-19, Charlton, but we also need to think about those veterans and the pandemic that they're going through. There's no vaccine on the horizon for suicide in America, Charlton. It is even prevalent in mainstream America.
Yeah.
This is something that all Americans need to be concerned about. I know a lot of people look upon it as an embarrassment, but it is not, Charlton. It's about saving someone's dignity and saving someone's life. That's what Americans need to do. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton. We need people to do more than say thank you for your service.
Yep.
It's thank you, how can I help you is what they need to do to our great veterans.
Very well said. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. A lot of other media companies are also trying to give out those help hotlines. Very, very good job. I love being a part of that. Also want to say very happy to be affiliated with Valley, Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run king, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to help put people back to work, just like car dealerships do it, McDonald's does it, and a lot of sports teams are doing it too. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to BigCSports.pac.com. WM.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. And I really appreciate saying to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see our apps pop up all over the world, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. My goodness, Big C, when you said there was a fish that was actually swimming down the street, was it really a fact that the fish was swimming down the street, or were you just laying down in that lake again that you trick those fish to come to your hands, Big C?
No, Charlton, the water was so deep down the sidewalks, he was just going with the flow.
He was going with the flow. It's all fair level war. I think the Portland Trailblazers, they had to get taken out of their hotel down south in Atlanta the other day. I think they had a tornado warning, so maybe the fish heard the tornadoes were coming, and they decided to heed the warning and walk down the street all over the South. Big C. Is all fair and love and war. But I want to tell you something that happened in the world of basketball last night. It was the Los Angeles Lakers. They found a way to get back over the top. Baseball swinging the bat. A lot of good things happening in the sports universe. But I want to start out today, Big C. I want to touch on some NFL football. I know we just finished talking about the NFL draft and how a lot of people love the draft. In fact, it's like a 3-day event now. Did you ever think the NFL draft, it is a 3-day event, a lot like the Super Bowl, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it has become an event within itself when you talk about the 3 days, Charlton. It's just like the Super Bowl. The NFL controls the sporting mode in America. They dominate the landscape. When they want to put on an event, Charlton, all other sports take a second and third seat.
Yeah.
When you think about when they do the combine, which they have not done for the past 2 years, it's a week-long event, Charlton,
yeah.
And it's covered on television, and it takes over football from baseball and basketball.
Yeah.
And now with the draft, dominating 3 nights of television and having a larger viewing audience than any other sporting event going on that weekend, Charlton, other than the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
So when you think about the NFL and how dominant it is, Charlton, it's just Americana.
Yeah, it really is. We've had, so many sports that keep people's mind, off of what's going on in their own lives, and NFL has really mastered that, Big C. They've done a good job of that. However, Big C, Pro Football Hall of Fame is great. I think there's about 346 members in it. I believe there's about 34 African Americans from HBCUs. But Pro Football Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, when you think about it, voiced his displeasure. We were just talking about this too, Big C. At seeing there were 0 players selected from the HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, during the 2021 NFL draft. None of the 259 players drafted this year were from the HBCUs. And no one in the sports universe can tell me that you can go all over this country, and even small programs with North Dakota State has someone drafted. You have programs from BYU, programs from Tulsa, and of course you have your Alabamas, Ohio State, USCs, your Michigans. But no one can tell me that you can't find out of 259 players at least 10 or 20 that come from HBCU that are better than guys that have been selected. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't even need that number, Charlton. Give me 4 or 5 HBCU players, Charlton, that are better than players that were drafted from some of these even mediocre universities.
Yeah.
I've looked at the downfall, Charlton, of the historical black colleges and how the NFL wants to discount the players, give the black man less than you give everybody else. People will say, well, no, they draft black players from those large schools also. That's not the point, Charlton. Historical black colleges. The talent level of those kids at those universities, Charlton, are equal to those at those Power 5 conference schools.
Yeah.
They just don't get the exposure. You don't have the combine the last 2 years, so they don't get an opportunity to be invited to the combine. NFL teams don't hold pro days at historical black colleges, but yet they'll go to Division Wnba colleges and hold pro days at North Dakota State, Wisconsin, Whitewater, Charlton. They'll hold pro days at those schools.
Yeah.
So when it comes to recognizing black athletes there is not an equal playing surface when it comes to the NFL teams. It's just like hiring black head coaches, Charleston. They don't get the opportunity.
Yeah.
The NFL always feels that they can get a discount, just like the Dallas Cowboys were trying to do with Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
They give the Dallas Cowboys a home team discount because you're a black quarterback, not a white quarterback, Charleston. And there were several historical black college quarterbacks that had the ability is equal to quarterbacks that were drafted this past season.
I remember the great Neil Lomax came out of Portland State way back in the day, Big C. Portland's not a great place for college football outside of University of Oregon and even Oregon State, the Pac-12 teams. But Neil Lomax, he had people show up and watch him out of small-town Portland
Well,
State.
think about Dan Pastorini was a first-round draft pick out of small Santa Clara out in California,
Yeah.
as well as Neil Lomax was a first-round draft pick out of small Portland State out there in Oregon, Charleston. You know, Tony Romo came out of Division II school and played with the Dallas Cowboys. When you think about Morgan State, Morgan State, Phil Simms, Super Bowl winning quarterback,
That's right.
came out of Morgan
Morgan
State.
State.
Terry Bradshaw, Louisiana Tech. Charleston, there's been a host of white college players out of small, unknown universities. Kenny Anderson out of tiny Augustana College, Charleston, went to 2 Super Bowls with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals, Big C. When you think about it, that several HBU players, they agreed to deals with teams as undrafted free agents. And this is for all the people that say, I can't believe that Aaron Rodgers, touchdown Aaron Rodgers, is upset that the Green Bay Packers showed him a lot of disrespect because they paid him over $250 million in his career with Green Bay, not including what he's doing with television commercials. And he came out of a small town up in Chico, California, went to Pleasant Valley High School, I believe, and then Butte Junior College, and then went to Cal Berkeley. And then he was looked over for the NFL draft, and then he had the chance to go play for the Green Bay Packers. But even from a small town, Chico, California, Pleasant Valley High School in Chico, Butte Junior College, Big C, for 1 year, but he still got that chance. And at the same time, you can't tell me that you have programs in the HBCUs that are really right down there. They're in the same neighborhood as the SEC. They're in the same neighborhood, Big C, as the ACC. I think the SEC had more players drafted than anybody else. And they're in the same talent pool. So how do they find their way to Portland, Oregon, but they can't find their way down to the southern states, Big C, to get the HBCUs, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they can't find their way, Charleston. I mean, when you think about the HBCUs, they start in the state of Texas and run all the way up through the state of Maryland, Charleston.
Yeah.
All through the southeastern corridor. And teams are aware of the talent, Charleston. Otherwise, you wouldn't sign these guys the day after the draft is ended.
That's
the
right.
first Monday after the draft is ended, the free agent contract, if you were not aware of their talent. But you know that you don't have to draft them because they're almost like hidden entities.
Yeah.
You bring them on the club, Charleston, they make the minimum. They make the league minimum. And yet they'll come out and be productive players. I mean, think about Shannon Sharp, a Hall of Fame tight end, Charleston, with a couple teams, the Denver Broncos and Baltimore Ravens.
All right, Big C, I think we had a little, I don't know if it's a sunstorm or a thunderstorm. Could be thunder, but something's knocked out the phone line. It's all fair in Love and War. As I tell people, you don't have to bug the Big C Sports line. You can just Google Big C Sports Podcast, and you can pick up the show. It's all fair, Love and War. But again, back to the HBCUs. They're surrounded by primarily the schools in the SEC and also the ACC, Big C, even some Big 12 schools that you go up to the east part of the country, but they keep overlooking them. There were 0 HBCU players drafted. However, there were players that come out of the undrafted free agents. They will sign them, and they do it as I would just say, Aaron Rodgers complained about getting $250 million more, on his contracts since he's been drafted. I'm sure it's more than that. But then you have players that get overlooked, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when we look at these historical black colleges, Charleston, I think of Shannon Sharp out of Savannah State. And that's not too far from the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech, Charleston, and yet he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And no one in that era that he was drafted in went into the Hall of Fame other than Champ Bailey out of Georgia.
Yeah.
A much larger university. So when we think about the quality and talent of these historical black colleges, I mean, we think about players like Sweetness, Walter Payton, came out of that. Steve McNair, Alcorn State, went to a Super Bowl, Charlton, as a quarterback. So all they need is the opportunity. But why do you have to not draft them to give the opportunity to them? I mean, think about Darius Leonard, one of the top linebackers in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. South Carolina State. They didn't take him in the first round, but yet the first rounders, he outplay him.
Yeah, it's amazing, Big C. Michael Strahan, a lot of good players, stalwarts. It's all fair and love and war. When you think about it, Mac McCain, North Carolina A&T, got picked up by the Broncos, Big C. There's a Brian Mills out of North Carolina Central, got picked up by the Seahawks. That's a long way to find talent, Big C. But they found him. And there's people can say what they want to say. In my opinion, there's a way to disenfranchise people by keeping them coming through the back door like the days of Jim Crow. Just my opinion. David Moore, Grambling State, went for the Panthers, signed with the Carolina Panthers. Calvin Ashley from FAMU signed with the Buccaneers. Big C. Keon Smith, Fayetteville State, signed with the Falcons. And it's just like people can say, well, what's the point? You get a chance anyway. But there's also a lack of respect shown to these great universities. When even we talk about HBCU month, the whole country gets behind it. Let's find a way to support our HBCUs. But this NFL, this oligarchy of power, they want those guys. They just want them walking on, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about NFL teams, and you talked about Atlanta, I think there's 8 HBCUs within, an hour and a half drive of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that you can't scout those players with as bad a team as you have down there in the South, Charlton, in Atlanta?
Yep.
That they can't, drive up to one of those campuses periodically?
Yeah. Well, the NFL, out of 32 teams, they're old Caucasian men, and out of 32, there's 30 that are called. I'm not saying that's a fact, but
no, the owners have nothing to do with drafting the players. It comes down to the general managers, and it comes down to the head coaches and the directors of player personnel and the scouting department, Charlton. The owners are not going out there looking at players other than the ones they see on television. But it comes down to your scouting department, your director of player personnel, your general manager and coaching staff when they're out there looking at college players, knowing who they can get for nothing, Charlton.
Yeah, well, my point is, Big C, the coaches, the GMs, the scouters, they don't write the paychecks, the owners do. And I just want to draw this conclusion. And again, this goes back to touchdown Aaron Rodgers and the media, even African-American media, being highly offended that a man that's been paid over $250 million by the organization called the Green Bay Packers, they're offended that they're saying he's been disrespected. And when I look at what Deion Sanders is saying, when I look at what you've been saying, Big C, about the HBCUs, when you think about it, Justin Fields came out of Ohio State. They acted like, media-wise, they were guys that were saying, well, I know at one time he had 50 touchdowns and 1 interceptions, but we don't know if he can read defenses. We don't know if he has the knack to study for the game. We don't know if he has everything we're looking for. And I'm just saying, Big C, I think some of that same parallel runs with these scout directors. The owners of these teams, they write the checks for everybody. And it's a shame that they're paying people who are ignoring this pot of gold in the HBCUs that they could pay for and help their teams win. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the media is the mouthpiece for all of this, Charlton. The media is the one that you're quoting. We're not quoting the owners. The NFL actually writes checks because there's a thing called a salary cap. The Green Bay Packers don't even have an owner, so they're not part of that owner equation. There's only 31 teams in the NFL with an owner. That team is community-owned. So it comes down to the general manager and director of player personnel as far as constructing the contract. And so I just look at it that it's a level of discrimination when we look at the black universities not getting the respect over the past 20 years in the NFL that they once got once things changed from a broadcast perspective.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Offensive tackle Latavius Simmons from Tennessee State was the only player from an HBCU drafted last year. Chicago Bears selected him number 227 overall. in the 7th round, and that was last year. So obviously it takes media to bring attention to it. I love bringing attention to it. We've talked about it so many times. Deion Sanders talking about it. And so everybody has to, if you care about winning, no one's saying you have to draft anybody. But if you can go up to Provo, Utah, and look at a player that played against lesser competition than the Power Fives, and you can go up there and watch him throw a football and say, hey, that guy that couldn't beat Coastal Carolina threw for less than 300 yards in that game is going to be a number 1 draft pick. And you overlook so many players. It's just my opinion that a lot more talented. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you can go to Wisconsin Whitewater, and I know you don't even know where that is, and draft an offensive lineman in the 3rd round out of a Division II school, you can find talent anywhere.
Yeah, you can find talent anywhere. It's all fair in Leavenworth. Big C, I want to touch on some things, and I'm glad Deion Sanders, came out and said some things that he was on his mind, because if we don't do it, then nobody else will. It takes a pretty sad dog that won't wag his own tail. It's all fair in Leavenworth. Big C. Women's college and professional basketball Atlanta Dreams coach Nikki Coleman, Big C, is leaving for the WNBA. Actually, she's leaving the WNBA to take over as the coach of the Baylor women's basketball program. The school announced that Monday. She's going to replace the great Kim Mulkey, who left last week to become LSU's coach. Current Atlanta assistant Mike Peterson takes over as interim head coach of the Dream, who begin their season on May 14th. Big C, your thoughts?
You got 10 days and your coach walks away, Charlton. That leaves you in kind of a tip. So, I mean, I like the move going to Baylor. When you think about which opportunity for this coach, Charlton, has the best upside, I think it's the University of Baylor.
Yep.
You're going to have an opportunity to make more money on that collegiate level, ironically, as a women's basketball coach than you do on the professional level.
Yeah,
when you think about the boosters and the program that Mulkey built down there at the University of Baylor, Charlton, if you go down and win, the deep pockets will come up and shake your hand down there at Baylor.
Yeah, the deep pockets are the deep paperbacks. Somebody's going to shake somebody's hands. Colin became the Dream's head coach prior to the 2018 season. Went 38-52 in her 3 years with Atlanta. Her best season was her first season, Big C, with the Dream. She was 23-11 in 2018 and advanced to the WNBA final. So it's all fair in Leavenworth. She's going to definitely do the best she can to make the most of opportunities. But I want to also, when you think about it, sometimes you have big shoes to replace. When I think about the women's basketball, new LSU women's basketball coach Kim Mulkey, and again, in my opinion, they were robbed in the tournament against UConn. Not UConn's fault, just the way games are called. But they were robbed. I thought their player was fouled at the end of the game, Big C. But you think about LSU women's basketball coach Kim Mulkey. She received an 8-year deal, Big C, that's going to pay her at least $22.5 million before incentives. And the school announced that Wednesday, LSU is also buying out her contract at Baylor, will provide a personal travel allowance of $80,000 per year. Now, that agreement is contingent on final approval by the LSU Board of Supervisors. If she can't get it with an ACH deposit, I'm sure there's a lot of paperbacks down in Baton Rouge. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you can't say that they're cheap down in the SEC, Charlton. You get what you pay for. They paid for Kim Mulkey to come home, Charlton, to Baton Rouge. She only grew up 59 miles away from the campus.
Yeah.
So she's like being at home, Charlton. And LSU wants a winner. The thing about the SEC, Charlton, is that they go all out in their athletic departments about getting the best coaches that they can bring in and getting the best opportunity for their players to have an opportunity to win. And Kim Mulkey is going to create that environment down at LSU and the SEC. I mean, some of the greatest women coaches in college basketball exist in that conference. When you think about Don Staley at South Carolina, which is going to be her major competitor down there in that conference, Charlton, and even the ladies at Mississippi State who were in the Final Four just 2 years ago. So there's some tremendous basketball played in the SEC.
Yeah, a lot of tremendous basketball, Big C. Also, Mulkey's hiring was announced Sunday, and she was introduced in a ceremony at the great Pistol Pete Maravich Assembly Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on Monday. She was 632 wins, only 104 losses in 21 seasons at Baylor, Big C, with 3 NCAA championships, a dozen Big 12 regular season titles, and 11 league tournament championships. And I'm telling you, that's a lot of winning, especially down in Texas, where everybody knows somebody on the referee. Allegedly, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, she has a history of winning, Charlton, on the collegiate level. When she won a national championship at Louisiana Tech when she was a player.
Yeah.
And to go on and duplicate that feat as a head coach at the University of Baylor and now be able to come back home, Charlton, and hopefully, bring the state university a championship. What better ending could she have to her great career there in Louisiana?
Yeah, I think to get the benefit of the doubt when they play, if they play a game against UConn, Big C, that's a great ending that you could have, or that's a better ending if they can get the call, if that makes sense to you. Speaking of money and paper bags that float all around the South, you can see them flying. Maybe that's the UFO that Baker Mayfield thought he saw. He was just seeing the money bag being dropped off in Cleveland.
Well, the thing about not living in California, Charlton, it doesn't always burn up in forest fires.
Yeah, I think they come out here and start some of those forest fires using those paper bags and not putting out them, trying to hide the evidence. It's all fair level with Big C. I want to look at Major League Baseball when you think about it. For the first time ever, Major League Baseball teams sold tickets in exchange for a cryptocurrency. It's called Dogecoin, Big C. The Oakland Athletics, they announced it would be selling a pair of seats in its outdoor stadium for 100 Dogecoin, Big C. The value of a Dogecoin surpassed 50 cents as of Tuesday morning. In the two seats pot at the same time, Big C. They have a lot of guys trying to sell things outside of different stadiums all over the country, and now they're going to introduce a currency that a lot of people overseas already understand. I mean, that's a good thing that they're expanding how you can buy tickets now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, cryptocurrency, Charlton, is becoming a major item in the mainstream of finance around the world. When you think about last year, we had an NFL player took half his salary in Bitcoin. Offensive lineman for the Tennessee Titans became the highest paid offensive lineman in NFL history by doing that, Charlton. And now we have the Major League Baseball and the NBA doling in Bitcoin for tickets.
Yeah, the team's owner, Dave Cavall, Big C, he announced that they have since been sold, stating that the sale was the first Dogecoin transaction in Major League Baseball history for the 100 Dogecoin purchase price. Buyers got 2 seats, all 4 games of the series against the Toronto Blue Jays, Big C. Oakland A's have done similar cryptocurrency transactions in the past as the team started selling tickets in Bitcoin back in March 2021. And when you think about it, the A's joined the NBA's Dallas Mavericks, the owner, the only American professional sports teams that are accepting Dogecoin transactions. Mavericks owner, the great Mark Cuban, has been a proponent of the cryptocurrency in the past, saying it was a wiser purchase than a lot of lottery tickets, if nothing else. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you have to be able to move in finance, and professional sports are about finance, Charlton, and ways to expand your economic wealth. This is a new way of doing it in professional sports.
It's a new way of doing it in professional sports. It's not new overseas. A lot of people have been doing it overseas, but it's been new to professional sports teams in the United States of America. It's all fair and level war. Big C, Major League Baseball, Ramon Laureano homered in the 3rd consecutive day, and the Oakland A's beat the Toronto Blue Jays 5-4 on Monday. In his spoiled Marcus Semion's return to the Coliseum, it was Stephen Piscotty also went deep, hit the ball so deep, put the ball to sleep. The great Ice Cube's Big C, and then Jed Lowry doubled twice and had 3 hits. Frankie Montez pitched 6 uneven innings to win his first meeting between the teams in more than 2 years. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about the A's, they've been streaking. They've been up and down first and second place in the Western Division of the American League all season long.
Yeah.
And they've had some streaks, Charlton, where they've gone over 10 games without losing. And now they're trying to get back into that hot seat. I guess the dog coin helped them out.
Yeah, the dog coin helped them out, help a lot of people out as we all understand more about the cryptocurrency. Also, Major League Baseball closer Hector Neris, Big C, needed 40 pitches, just 40, to make sure the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen did not blow another one, as another one did not bite the dust. Velasquez threw 6 sharp innings. JT Romano hit a 2-run homer, and the Phillies held on to beat the Milwaukee Brewers by the score of 4-3 on Monday night. Velasquez is 1-0. He allowed 1 run, 4 hits, striking out 6, and his longest outing this season. And never struck out Lorenzo King with the bases loaded in the 9th to preserve the win in front of a lot of intensity. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you think about the pressure on a pitcher, Charlton, a relief pitcher, when you got the bases loaded and you're able to strike out that final hitter.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you need, and that's what you need late in the season. And this is why Major League Baseball season is so long, because you have so many epic outings.
All right, Big C, you had a little bit of problem. I guess somebody hit the home run so far it knocked out a phone line, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, this is just one of those epic outings when you have such a long baseball season.
Yeah.
Able to strike out the batter with the bases loaded for the final out.
Yeah, for the bases loaded, and that's a lot of intensity, but you can do that, Big C. Nolan Arenado and Harrison Bader homered to back Wainwright's first win of the season. 4 Cardinals relievers combined for a 3 1/3 hit in this innings, Big C. Adam Wainwright, the great Adam Wainwright, came off the COVID-19 injury list and hung tough, Big C. St. Louis got a lights-out performance from his bullpen, and the Cardinals beat the New York Mets, and everybody beat the New York Mets, Big C, 6-5 on Monday night for their 5th straight win. And they even fired their batting coach. He's not the one striking out, Big C, for the Mets, I thought.
Well, you fire the batting coach, Charleston, because you need an excuse. You got to get rid of somebody.
Yeah.
Those guys out there making millions of dollars swinging the bat and can't make contact.
Yeah.
You got to blame the guy that's sitting in the dugout that they can't see the pitches coming at.
Yeah, can't see the pitches coming out of Big C. Before the Big C pause, the great Will Myers had an opposite field single with no outs in the 7th inning to end Tyler Anderson's no-hit bid. And the San Diego Padres beat the Pittsburgh Pirates, Big C, on Monday night. The Pirates' 5th straight loss. Anderson's 2-3 now, kept the Pirates off balance with 6 innings before he broke through in the 7th. Anderson issued a leadoff walk to Manny Machado before Myers singled to right field. And then, think about this, the great Anderson allowed only 3 base runners, 2 on walks, and 1 on errors in the 5th inning. Had a very solid night. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, the Los Angeles Dodgers are going to have to be worried about the San Diego Chargers all year long, Charlton. The Padres are getting healthy.
Yep.
The Dodgers are putting people on the IL, Charlton, and they're starting to warm up with their bats down in San Diego.
Yeah, they're going to warm up with their bats down in San Diego, but you know what? It's not going to work. The Dodgers are just kind of fooling people. They're playing possum. They're playing possum. We're going to play possum, too, as we take the Big C pause. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the NBA because it is fantastic, in the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger. We'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that you can follow Big C Sports, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I just want to run down, before we get into NBA, tonight's Major League Baseball schedule, Big C style. The Los Angeles Dodgers at the Chicago Cubs. What a series that should be, Big C. The Dodgers and the Cubs playing twice today. In San Francisco at Colorado playing twice. The White Sox at Cincinnati. You got to be careful. When you put a snake in a cage with a marlin, Big C, it better be in the water, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it all depends on whether it's a water snake, Charles. Those water moccasins are pretty vicious.
How about you know that water moccasins are pretty vicious? I know they probably taste pretty good too. It's all fair lot war. Arizona Diamondbacks in there with the Florida Marlins. They got to be careful with those snakes in the water. You also have Atlanta at Washington, and then Houston at the New York Yankees. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, baseball is like the rain. It's frequent, it's often, and it lasts a long time. And we got to get up, to that 100-game mark, Charlton, before these games matter.
Yeah.
But this is the first game for the Astros visiting New York since that cheating scandal came out, Charlton, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they cheated, and they're not talking about people. They're talking about how they cheated the game in the sports software. When you talk about New York and people cheating, Big C, that's how some players get mononucleosis. We have Milwaukee at Philadelphia, Detroit at Boston, Big C. And when you think about it, Texas at the Twin Cities in Minnesota, the New York Mets, who want to fire everybody, especially if they don't hit, Big C, at St. Louis. That game had a delayed start. You have Cleveland at Kansas City, Tampa Bay at the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And the Toronto Blue Jays at Oakland A's with the Bitcoin and Dogecoin Big C. You have the Pirates at San Diego and the Baltimore Orioles at the Seattle Mariners. And I understand the fish in Seattle, they don't mix those with snakes, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they're a little slippery, Charlton, and they've already been gutted when they get tossed across the mark.
Yeah, that's funny. You said make sure it's not a water moccasin in the water, you thought?
Well, that's the reason why they jumped out of the water, Charlton, because they know snakes will bite.
That's funny. Just when you think you're safe in the water like Jaws, here comes the water moccasin. It's all fair in level war. But speaking of the lake, Big C, sometimes you got to put people in a lake. And the Denver Nuggets, I told you they got to be careful coming out to Los Angeles, that they may drown in the lakes. You got to learn to swim when you come out to Los Angeles, and you're going to play around with the defending NBA world champion Los Angeles Lakers. I'm not saying it's going to put any doubt on the fact that the Denver Nuggets, they have lost the series lead with the Los Angeles Lakers. They didn't have LeBron James. They didn't have Shooter, Big C. But they had the great Anthony Davis, who dropped 25 points, had a key play at both ends of the floor in the final minute as a shorthanded and maybe desperate defending world champion Los Angeles Lakers. They snapped the 3-game skid of losing 98-89. It was one of the fewest point totals in a win, Big C, but they did get a win over the Denver Nuggets on Monday night. The Joker had 32 points, and Michael Porter Jr. had 19. But if anyone's going to tell me that the whole sports universe is tuning in to watch the Joker play basketball, I don't see it, but everybody has their own flavor of Kool-Aid, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, even out there in California, even a blind squirrel will find an acorn every now and then.
Yeah.
And that's what the Lakers were able to do against the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
They found that acorn. They thought it was a golden nugget. They lucked up on a victory against them. I mean, every now and then a team will have an off night. It's a long season.
Yeah.
But the Lakers, they got a tall tree to climb, Charlton, to try to get back in the saddle where they were last year.
Yeah, they got a tall tree to climb. But just when I thought I was safe going swimming, because you can see a shark when a shark was swimming, and when you hear the music, dun 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 dun, you know there's a shark someplace nearby. How can you tell if a water moccasin is nearby?
You know, he slithers through the water, Charlton, you know, and lakes are someplace that they like to hang out, so the Lakers better be careful that they don't go down real soon.
Be careful of the moccasins. That's funny. Oh, man, that's funny. NBA basketball, the great Julius Randle dropped 28 points. And the great Derrick Rose, former MVP, is doing his thing, dropping 25. They converted 11 of 15 shots, Big C. The New York Knicks held off the Memphis Grizzlies 118-104 on Monday night. It was a 12th win in 13 games, and they did it without the great Patrick Ewing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Knicks have solidified themselves a spot in the playoffs for the first time in almost a decade.
Yeah.
It's great for the city of New York to have two outstanding teams representing the NBA in the playoffs. Madison Square Garden will be back in play.
Yeah, it's back in play, Big C. I love Madison Square Garden, especially when they clean out those elevators. Some of those elevators just didn't smell the freshest. It's all fair and level work, Big C. The great Dylan Brooks, who had 25 points for Memphis, and the rookie Desmond Bain dropped 22 points, while the great Jaren Jackson, Big C, Jaren Jackson Jr. finished with 15 points for the Grizzlies. And what I do love about New York, of course, I like tradition, but I also like the nouveau riche look. When the Knicks wear their black jerseys with the circular New York Knicks on it, to me it looks like they could be maybe the University of Oregon, Big C, but I love that look for the tradition of the New York Knicks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the NBA has gotten back into marketing one-on-one, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you think about some traditional jerseys that have been around forever in the NBA,
yep,
and to go to a bunch of old throwback uniforms like the NFL has done for the past decade, Charlton, you increase your marketing revenue, Charlton, selling your licensed products. Plus, you always have an exciting new look on the court.
Yeah, it's always nice to have something new on the court, Big C. And speaking of something new, they should enjoy the Big C burger. It is a tasty burger. It comes with exotic meats. I can't confirm or deny the moccasin in the Big C burger, but it goes great with Budweiser Zero, and it's 0% alcohol. It goes great with the Big C burger. Can't confirm or deny the moccasin inside of the burger. That's all fair level words. I got to be careful when I go out swimming looking for moccasins. The great Tobias Harris, he scored 21 points. Seth Curry added 20. And the Philadelphia 76ers, they won their 5th straight game. They beat the Chicago Bulls. It was 106-94 on Monday night. However, Philadelphia built a third-quarter lead. It's a big lead, Big C, and then they held on. They stayed ahead of the Brooklyn Nets, who have a big game tonight with Milwaukee for the top spot in the Eastern Conference. Now, the 76ers finished with 5 starters in double figures. The great Ben Simmons, he only had 15 points. Danny Green dropped in 14, relatively quiet. Joel Embiid had 13 points, not used to seeing him only score 13. And that's the entire game, not just in the first half, Big C. He did have 10 rebounds. The great Kobe White, he scored 23 points for the Bulls, who played without both Zach LaVine and Nikolai Vucevic, Big C, for the second straight game. And Thaddeus Young, he dropped 13 points in the team's 4th straight loss, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Philadelphia holds on to the top spot in the East, but they're not doing it in a dominating fashion, Charlton. So they're going to have to be concerned going down the stretch. I mean, don't turn your back on Milwaukee.
Yeah, don't turn your back on Milwaukee. And when I saw Giannis block Kevin Durant's shot, I said, no one can tell me that guys are just trying to go out there and try not to commit a foul. No one can say, well, guys are out there taking time off, and because big on big is always exciting. And to see, I don't think I've ever seen Durant's shot blocked before. Have you, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I've seen it blocked before, Charlton, but it's a rarity because of his explosiveness and where he can shoot from on the court.
Yeah, it's explosive. He's explosive. That's a good matchup. Can't wait to see that. It's on the DVR. Also, NBA basketball, Danilo Gallinari, Big C, had, think about this, 7 3-pointers, shooting like Steph Curry, and finished with 28 points, leading the Atlanta Hawks to a 123-114 victory over the Portland Trailblazers in a matchup Monday night of teams battling for playoff position in Big C in their respective conferences, Eastern and Western Conference. Now, the Hawks snapped the Portland's 4-game winning streak, which had come early. When you think about it, they did it all on the road. The Trailblazers, they were forced from the hotel rooms because there was some thunder and lightning and I believe a tornado about a half hour out of the area of Atlanta, Big C. They ran out of steam in the 4th quarter, and they ruined a 33-point night by the great Dollar Dame Damian Lillard, Big C. In a bit of history, the great Carmelo Anthony out of Syracuse University played for the great Boeheim, Big C, and went on to play for Denver. I remember so many games watching Carmelo Anthony battle when he was at Denver, playing Kobe and the Lakers. It was Carmelo and Kobe doing their thing, Big C. And now he got a little bit older, and people started saying, well, he doesn't have the same spring in his step anymore. The great Carmelo Anthony, Big C, 36 years old, dropped 14 points, surpassed the great Elvin Hayes for 10th place on the NBA scoring all-time list with 27,318 points, one of the top 10 scorers in the universe, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Big E was one of the greatest players in NFL history. He's a member of the 50th anniversary All-50 team, Charlton. I mean, he's known for some memorable performances in college, at the University of Houston, battling then Lou Alcindor, as well as in the NBA when he teamed up with Wes Unseld to win the Washington Bullets' only NBA title, Charlton, back in the 70s. The Big E was a very great player, Charlton, and congratulations to Carmelo for surpassing him for 10th place all-time on the scoring list.
That's amazing. When you think about a player, he's been doing his thing for so long, and sometimes you kind of go under the radar, but I'm really appreciate the great Carmelo Anthony still bringing it at age 36 as all fair and level war, Big C. NBA basketball, the great Utah Jazz, they beat Coach Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs. It was 110-99 on Monday night, in a large part by denying the Spurs scoring opportunities at the rim. See, these guys are challenging because it means so much. They're playing for something. This is not where you watch the guy go get a layup. As much as I love Michael Jordan, I love NBA basketball, but Michael Jordan, I followed him when he came out of North Carolina. That game against the Lakers, Big C, where he went on them with his right hand, and then he swung the ball over to his left hand. I watched it so many times. There was no Laker that put their hand up on it. And then he said, why did he switch over to his left hand? No one tried to block his shot. And then he went to the left because of his showmanship. And that's another reason that Mike was so great, Big C. But last night, no showmanship. They were blocking everything for Utah, Big C. That's why they're going to be one of the top teams in the West. And when you think about this, San Antonio did not make his first layup until the final minute of the second quarter. And the Spurs missed all 7 3-pointers they attempted before halftime, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Utah has always been known as a defensive stopper, Charlton. And when you have Rudy Gobert sitting in the middle, who's been 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA, nothing's coming easy.
It's not coming easy, Big C. The great Rudy Gobert, he dropped 24 points. He had 15 rebounds, and he keyed the defensive effort to help Utah lead wire to wire. And when you think about the Jazz, Big C, it goes great with wet wine, but also they earned their second straight victory with efficient offense and tough defense. Utah grabbed, when you think about it, scored 22 points off of 13 San Antonio turnovers. They shot 50% from the field. That's very tough to beat. You have Bogdan Bogdanovic, Big C, led the offense, dropping 25 points. Jordan Clarkson added 16 points for the Jazz. And then the great Joe Ingles tripped in 13 points, had 8 assists. And now when you look at the other side, the great DeMar DeRozan, also a player from Southern California, scored 22 points. Rudy Gay had 17 points to lead the Spurs, who lost their 4th straight game. And I know that doesn't make Pop too happy, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is not your old San Antonio Spurs.
No, not at all.
The team has been in the rebuilding process for the past couple of years, and when they got rid of Aldridge out in the middle, they had no one to contend underneath.
That's very true, but Pop is he's gonna, 20, 2 decades is a long time at any one spot, Big C. He and Bill Belichick doing their thing. I'm sure he'll turn things around. But also, when you think about NBA basketball, and especially when you think about Northern California, oftentimes people look up in the sky, they go, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Steph Curry shooting for a 3. Big C, this great Steph Curry. He set the bar so high for himself that nobody really seems surprised anymore. When he puts up eye-popping numbers on a nightly basis, that's why Curry is my MVP. Everybody sets the DVR for Curry the same way they set the DVR for the great Barry Bonds when he came up to the plate, Big C. The latest example, it came on Monday night during a 123-104 win at the New Orleans Pelicans. You know the NBA wants to get Zion Williamson in the NBA playoffs. We all know that, and I'm not even against that, Big C. But Curry said, not so fast, my friends. The New Orleans Pelicans and Golden State Warriors, the Stars scored 41 points, dropping 41 points, Big C, like a parking meter, and the offensive explosion marked the 9th time this season that Curry dropped 40 or more points in a game in the 6th. When you think about the 6th time in the past 15, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he's a shooting machine, Charlton. He's a juggernaut named Warrior. So when you think about what Steph Curry does, every NBA team is worried about him when he walks onto the court.
Yeah.
And he's going to create some drama, Charlton, when it comes to the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
This is a guy that the Los Angeles Lakers are hoping to avoid, Charlton, because in a 2 out of 3, sometime you want to take Curry.
And I'm telling you all the time, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Curry for 3. It's all fair 11 war as the Warriors come out to play down in the deep south. Big C, the great Draymond Green added 10 points. His usual 15 assists and 13 rebounds. Draymond Green, he assists like he's a point guard, Big C. A lot of guys could learn from that. Golden State took a big step forward in locking up a postseason berth. The great Andrew Wiggins quietly dropped in 26 points for Golden State, with 10 coming in a key stretch in the 4th quarter, Big C. Your friend, the great Zion Williamson, I know you show favor to those Southern athletes, Big C. He dropped 32 points, and then Brandon Ingram dropped 19 for the Pelicans, who trailed by as many as 25 points in the first half of the game, and they urgently needed a win, but no, they saw the Warriors come out to play. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this has been the New Orleans Pelicans, Charlton, the past 2 seasons. An overly hyped team by the league and the fans, Charlton, but yet they can't get consistent productivity out of that young lineup they have. Van Gundy is going to have to take at least another year to try to stabilize who is going to be the true leader of that team.
Yeah, who's on first to lead is what they have to figure out. There's so much talk about who's really the NBA. It's kind of like going to the restaurant, Big C, and you want to order the steak, you want to order the chicken, you want to deep fry it, you want the catfish. What do you say you eat that comes out of the water sometime, Big? What kind of steak is it, Big C?
No, we handle the fish because the snake will send him up on the bank too.
I gotta be careful when I go swim in the bay. It's all fair, level war, Big C, but everybody has their own opinion. But I'm gonna give you another opinion about somebody. He played at Lucider High School in Los Angeles, California, down near Long Beach, south of L.A., and then he went to UCLA. And they have that John Wooden court, so a lot of guys step up their game, Big C. They made it to the Final Four this year. 11 national championships, the great John Wooden. Now one of the best point guards in the NBA basketball universe. I want to tell you something about Westbrook. He's always maligned, though. He's a lot like Curry. People are so accustomed to seeing him do his thing every night in and night out that sometimes they take it for granted and they'll say, well, he shoots the ball too much and he hustles too much. Sometimes he's shooting the ball too much because his teammates are lagging behind. But he has a chance this year. The great Russell Westbrook, Big C, would you believe he's also out of California, became the only player with multiple 20 assists, 20 rebound games in NBA history, Big C. The great Wilt Chamberlain is the only other player with one of the surging Washington Wizards moved closer to Indiana in the Eastern Conference playoff standings. They beat the Pacers 154-141 on Monday night, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, Charlton, it always says something. I mean, this entire season, when everybody has talked about statistics in the NBA and who's the greatest of all time,
yeah.
We've heard that GOAT song too long, Charlton.
Yeah.
The one name that consistently comes up year in, year out in a debate is Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Because everybody who gets to a record plateau in the NBA is trying to amass one of Wilt Chamberlain's records. Now, Wilt Chamberlain has not played, and he's the late Wilt Chamberlain, since the 70s.
Yeah.
And did not have a three-point shot during his era, Charlton.
No.
But the numbers that he set the plateau for, as you said, that Steph Curry set the bar so high. No, Wilt Chamberlain set the bar high for everyone to chase, Charlton.
Yeah. I think that good boy set so many bars, Big C. A lot of people don't pay attention because it's not always on television. But I think about the great Russell Westbrook, Big C. 14 points to go along with a career-high 21 rebounds and a career-tying 24 assists. Now, he could drop back and try to shoot 10 threes a game, but he only dropped 14 points. But he had 21 rebounds and 24 assists, Big C, for his league-leading 32nd triple-double. I think even the great Ice Cube talked about it back in the day, messed around and got a triple-double. Has 178 triple-doubles, just 3 short of the great Oscar Robinson's career record, Big C, with 7 games remaining on the season. When you think about it, he's on the coattails of the great Oscar Robinson, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about what Russell Westbrook has meant averaging triple-doubles in a game, Charlton, his teams have won 75% of the games that he has produced a triple-double in.
Yeah.
Last night was the 145th victory that he has produced a triple-double in, and his team won the game. So he's make that 134 and 44 in triple-doubles, Charlton, in his career.
Yeah.
So as you think about Russell Westbrook and how he has tried to make teams and players better around him by his hustle, I mean, it is proven that when he gets the triple-double, his team is generally going to win a game.
And you know what? He does not slow down waiting for somebody else to catch up. They say he shoots too much. Well, then get open. Run down the court with him so he doesn't have to. But he's doing his thing, Big C. No one can say he shoots too much when he has that many assists. Also, Monday's performance guarantees that Westbrook will average a triple-double. And this is what people saying, oh, players are taking time off and they want to rest. They want to pretend that they're hurt so they get more time to rest. The great Russell Westbrook, Big C, will average triple-double in a season for the 4th time in his career. It guaranteed it on Monday night, Big C. He's the only player to do so since it was done in 1961 and 1962. Point guards, they don't do what he does, Big C. Some people say it's not normal. They say most people are not built that way. They're doing this thing on Marvel Comics, and maybe he could play the Black Panther because he's just like the Black Panther, Big C. He's always saying, the universe is his, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's been a dynamic player ever since he's been in the NBA, Charlton. He has developed and has improved his game every year. But to be able to average a triple-double for multiple seasons in the NBA is a feat that's been done by no other.
Yeah, it's amazing. That young kid out of Lucenter High School in Southern California between Long Beach and Los Angeles doing his thing, and it's all fair and love and war. Keep doing your thing, Russell. It's all fair and love and war. NFL football, Big C. The New York Jets, they score a rare NFL draft trifecta with a top pick. The Jets drafted 3 players with a grade of 90 or above, something that had not been done since the 2008 Miami Dolphins scouts. Inc. I think they were grading players since 2004. The only other time a team pulled a 90 hat trick was the 2005 Miami Dolphins. In this year's draft, only 16 players, Big C, received a 90 grade. The Jets selected BYU quarterback Zach Wilson, 93, and number 2 overall pick USC guard Elijah Vera-Tucker, 91 at number 14. After trading up, an Ole Miss wide receiver Elijah Moore scored a 90 Big C with 34th pick. And then the Jets had 3 picks in the top 34, certainly improving their chances of landing highly touted players. They can thank the great Jamal Adams now in Seattle for that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Jamal Adams complained and cried so much that he wanted out of town, Charlton. They shipped him off to Seattle. Seattle gave the Jets a wealth of draft picks, Charlton, that's going to benefit this team for years to come.
Yeah, it's going to benefit them, Big C. If you're keeping score on the trade safety Jamal Adams, the Jets turned half of Adams' trade into a 6'4", 308-pound guard who will be a day one starter. They still have Seattle's first 4th-round picks to go, Big C, in 2022. Ole Miss, 5'9", 184-pound wide receiver Elijah Moore. Highlights remind a lot of people of the young Pittsburgh Steelers named the great Antonio Brown, who also scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl 55 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the great Tom Brady. Now, the Jets have the league's longest active drought of not drafting a Pro Bowl player on offense, Big C. The last draft to produce one actually produced 2. Tackle DeBrickashaw Ferguson and the center Nick Mangold, but that was way back in 2006, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, DeBrickashaw Ferguson came out of University of Virginia. Nick Mangold came out of Ohio State, Charlton. And when you think about it, the Jets drafted 3 players on offense this year, you know, early on. They got 2 in the first round, 1 in the second round. So if any of those players pan out, Charlton, the Jets potentially will have an all-pro player again. I do like the young wide receiver out of Mississippi, Charlton. When you look at him on tape, he looks just like Antonio Brown did early on with the Steelers' career. With Ben Roethlisberger, he has a quarterback that he can grow with in Wilson and a lineman to protect him.
Yep.
And your team, the offensive lineman up with Becton, their number 1 overall pick last year, Charlton. That left-sided offensive line of the New York Jets is going to be secure for a decade to come.
Yeah, it's going to be secure, Big C. I love the sports universe. It's all fair and level. Where I just want to touch on NBA basketball schedule tonight, and the Lakers got it done last night. I told you they would, gold was discovered in California at the bottom of the lake. So the Lakers was digging deep last night and got a win over the Denver Nuggets. I would love to see Anthony Davis realize that he really can be a lion, but you got to play down more in the paint. There was a time he turned around at the top of the key and turned around and tried to shoot it from the top of the key, and he got fouled. But imagine if he were to go down in the paint and try to make a living down in the paint and establish his presence, Big C, like the great Wilt Chamberlain did back in the day, maybe he could add another 10 points per game. Just a thought. You don't have to always shoot threes. Go down and get your 3 with the basket in the foul. That's just my opinion. Tonight's NBA schedule, the Hornets are at the Pistons, Big C. The Phoenix Suns, they're hot, Big C. They're going up to Cleveland. The Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks, they're playing tonight in Milwaukee, Big C, that back-to-back game. The Warriors, they're coming out to play down in New Orleans, playing the Pelicans. The Dallas Mavericks playing the Miami Heat down in Miami. The Sacramento Kings are playing the OKC Thunder, Big C. And then you have the Raptors at the LA Clippers. It's all fair in love and war. I know sometimes people want to see part 2. Like the Blues Brothers Part 2, Coming to America Part 2. They all want to see Part 2 something, Big C. Your thoughts, and we don't give out scores, your thoughts on the Nets, and also when you think about the Bucks, this is like a battle for one of the top 2 or 3 spots, maybe even the top spot in the Eastern Conference, Big C. Who you like?
Well, I mean, the Nets will not be the Nets until James Harden is back. Up until that point, I think that the Bucks are running the roost in the East.
Yeah, we'll see. It's all fair and level war. I just wish everybody nothing but the best. It's so important that people just give everything you have to life, Big C. And I know we're doing this thing on the Marvel Universe, but that's fictional. I want to just play out my African-American history. The great Phyllis Wheatley was only 12 years old when she became the first female African-American author that was published, Big C. When you think about it, despite Phyllis Wheatley's fame, we know surprisingly little about her early life. She was taken from her home in Africa when she was 7 or 8 years old. Imagine being a 7 or 8 year old and you can't find your child in a shopping mall or at a park at 7 or 8 years old. But she was taken from her home in Africa, Big C, when she was 7 or 8 years old. She was sold into slavery. Wheatley's family in Boston. The family taught her to read and write, encouraged her to write poetry as they witnessed her for her talents, Big C. Again, she was stolen from her own continent. In 1773, Phyllis published her first poem, making her the first African American to be published. She was only 12 years old at the time. So when I hear about professional athletes saying they're not showing me respect because they've only given me $250 million, and they won't tell me that I can be the only quarterback they'll ever have, a 12-year-old girl publishing her first poem, taken from her home at 7 or 8 years old. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's the history of America. The deprivation of black people to steal their ideas and their thoughts and not allow them to express their intelligence. That's been the history of this country for 400 years, Charlton. Many black Americans could have had that opportunity if only allowed. But white people were always in fear of them and their intelligence.
I really appreciate everything great that somebody does, but don't complain when you got $250 million when people are just trying to say, you know, there's no place like home, but she never got the chance to go back, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. We know NBA basketball is fantastic. Major League Baseball is swinging the bat. It's all fair and love and war. And now you have WNBA getting ready to start dribbling this month, Big C. Everybody loved the NFL draft. It was a fantastic. And we're now looking forward to what happens, what teams are going to compete for the NBA playoffs. Big C, look out for those snakes. I just want to get this. What kind of snake swims in the water that doesn't make a sound, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's several of them, but the water moccasin is the most famous.
If that doesn't make you afraid to swim, I don't know what will. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble with all you've got to use. How can you lose, Big C? What are you looking forward to in this boys' universe?
Well, Charlton, we got to look out there on the West Coast and try to believe that the NBA champion will repeat from out there, but not so fast, my friend. All the strength in the NBA is going to be coming from the East. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders, regardless of the conference that you're in. They'll take care of your kids.
They will take care of your kids, and you can too. When you rise and shine, you can rise and shine every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As my mom always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.